Welcome to the Get Organized HQ podcast. I'm your host, Tasha Lawrence. Every week, we share practical strategies for less stress and more peace as we dive into all topics life and home organization. I'm so glad you're here for this week's episode. Well, today on the Get Organized HQ podcast, I have Amy Cross from The Cross Legacy, and she is a produce storage queen. And what I learned today is she is also a grocery savings queen. She is going to share about how she has a $135 monthly grocery budget for each member of her family. And that's living in an area of the country where groceries are not exactly affordable. And so she's going to just share some of what she has experience in over the last several years of keeping this grocery budget really low, even in spite of rising prices and all sorts of different things. And you're definitely going to want to check out her YouTube channel as well, because she has so many tips and tricks on storing produce. And that is right in and of itself one way to save money on groceries is getting your produce to last longer. So listen in to today's conversation with Amy. Well, Amy, thanks so much for coming on to the Get Organized HQ podcast today. And I am ready to hear all about your tips for saving money on groceries. I've heard some about your produce savings and like keeping produce fresh, but I'm not sure if I've really heard from you on the grocery saving side of things. So I'm excited to hear what you have to share with us today.
I'm so thankful to be here today. It's been an honor to be a speaker in the conference for the last 3 years and get to know you through emails back and forth. So this is really fun for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I kind of alluded to it there, I guess, but I feel like is it accurate to say that you kind of started by sharing about produce keeping? Is there a better word for that? You would know, not me.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, things were so quiet and, everybody was scared to go to the grocery store. And I was on somebody else's Facebook page, Jordan Page's shelf cooking page. And there was a ton of young, scared moms on the page. And, I'm like pushing 50. Like I have been doing these tips for a really long time. And there was one mom in particular that said a question, like she was only going to the grocery store once every 2 weeks. She was, washing the boxes of stuff when she brought it home. She was really afraid, COVID, the pandemic, we were all didn't know what was going on and, what we needed to do to protect our family and that kind of stuff. And she was a single mom and didn't want to take her kids to the grocery store either very often. And then, shelves are empty, like all of those feelings that we were feeling during the beginning stages of the pandemic. And she was saying that she didn't know what to do because the produce only lasted 4 days. Her blueberries only lasted 4 days. And then she didn't know what to do for the other 10 days of that grocery shopping cycle. And I'm like reading these comments as these other moms are like answering and, giving her ideas and stuff. And then I realized that she was saying that she was throwing away those blueberries after 4 days because her family didn't eat them. They were only lasting 4 days because they were getting moldy. And then I popped in and I'm like, what are you talking about? My blueberries in the fridge right now are over a month old. Like when you bring them home, you're going to wash them the way I'm going to teach you how to wash them and store them. And blueberries will last 6 to 8 weeks in the refrigerator. Like you don't have to worry about not having fresh produce in your house for your kids and going to the grocery store once every 2 weeks. We actually only go to the grocery store. I say it's every 3 weeks, but that 3-week mark, I push out to 4 weeks every time. So it technically is once a month, but there's something in my brain where if I think I can only go to the grocery store once a month, that also messes with my brain.
Right.
So,
yep. You gotta phrase it to yourself the way that works for your own brain, right?
Yeah. So I say every 3 weeks, I'm pushing it out to 4 weeks. Technically, it ends up being once a month I go to the grocery store, but we have fresh produce the entire time because I've learned tips and tricks for 75 produce items to keep them fresh for weeks.
That's awesome. Yes. So I know on your YouTube channel, you've shared tons of that. So we're gonna kind of like leave that there. So I'll put a link to your YouTube channel in the show notes because I feel like we just like dangled this carrot now that we're talking about produce. Let's just use produce analogies. But like, well, how do you wash your blueberries to keep them for that long? So we will have links in the show notes to Amy's YouTube channel, and so you can go and check that out. But I really wanted to talk today about groceries in general. I feel like this is something I feel like for years now we've been saying like, oh, groceries are really expensive. And like, I'm not sure when we just set in and say this is like the new normal price instead of always calling them expensive. But I mean, it has been a thing. And so just where do you even begin when it comes to trying to save some money on groceries?
So first off, for our grocery budget, it's $135 per person. And I say that we're mostly an organic family. So I'm concentrating on 80% of the items that I'm bringing in. I try to make the best choices of them being organic. And then sometimes, Costco only has one brand of cottage cheese or something,
Right.
then it's whatever it is. So, and then we're also an allergy family and I'm diabetic. So we have some, health things that we are looking at too, but high quality items. And our grocery budget being $135 per person for the last 18 months. It's just been my husband and I here. So we have only spent $270 per month on groceries for the last 18 months. And we are college age parents, and we are also foster parents. And at one point, our grandma was also living with us. So our family size can vary depending on the season of our life. But years ago, when we had 8 here, I would max that out at $1,000. And people ask me, why did you max that out at $1,000? Well, that's what we could afford. Like,
Yeah.
we couldn't afford more than that. My husband, like his paycheck pays this much, and that's what it was. And so we were able to figure that out. But even with inflation, I've been able to keep that grocery budget at $135 per person. And, yeah, we don't have as many like extra things in the house as we used to, but we have high quality items in the house all the time. And a lot of that is because families are throwing away 40 to 60% of the food that they're buying. So
Mm.
even, people my age that are like have grown and flown kids, they're used to spending a lot at the grocery store, and they're spending $1,000 at the grocery store for just 2 people. You go in the grocery
Mhm.
store and spend $200 a week. It doesn't seem like, that out of normal, and
Yeah.
anyways, so it can be a family of 2 spending $1,000, and it can be a family of 8 spending $1,000. And those smaller size families, they're still throwing away so much of it. You think throwing away 40 to 60%, that's throwing away $400 to $600 worth of groceries a month. And
Yeah.
that's what I teach on my channel, is how to have zero waste and be able to use those ingredients multiple ways to make wholesome meals for your family.
Yeah. So when you say they're throwing it away, I mean, I'm assuming it covers both of these, but are you more so saying like the molding blueberries, right? Like it's literally coming out of the fridge. We did not touch it at all and we're throwing it out. Or I know, I mean, in my own family, it totally happens. I make a meal, we're going to have a stir fry or something, and then we don't actually eat all of the leftovers of that meal. Like it made more than we were going to eat. And then, oh man, like, we got to the end of the week. Okay, this has been in here for a week. So I got like, what is that encompassing both those types of food waste, I
Yes.
guess?
Yeah. Both those types of
Okay.
things in your pantry that you forget about and they go
Yeah.
stale and you're not rotating them out, things in your freezer that are getting freezer burned because
Yeah.
you haven't taken the time to actually look at the ingredients you have at your house and switch them out. And for the most part, my husband and I both work from home, so we do
Mhm.
eat leftovers for lunch. But if I make something that's too big, I'm freezing it to bring it back out for a
Mhm.
whole another night, not
Yeah.
just, oh, I hope somebody eats this in the refrigerator, or
Yes.
I keep, the protein separate from the vegetables so I can repurpose it to make it into something different. So it doesn't seem like we're eating the same thing, for
Yeah.
days on end. And
Yeah.
so some of those kind of tips are really handy, just kind of watching what I do. And I've been doing this on my YouTube channel all year. Every 2 weeks, we've been putting out meals that I've been making for all the ingredients that we have, but like my actual dinners that I'm making like every single night. And we've been doing this since the beginning of 2025. So you can really see like through the seasons what it
Mhm.
is. And also all of my grocery hauls are on YouTube. So you
Yeah.
can see, okay, she bought 10 peppers, and 3
Yeah.
weeks in she's still using those peppers, and this is how she's using them. And
Yeah.
so it's a neat playlist that we've been working on.
And I think that's a really great tip to keep the protein and vegetables separate. I know some people are just like, man, my family just, they don't like leftovers, right? I mean, I get it. It's never as exciting the second time around, right? I mean, there's a couple of dishes. I feel like lasagna does pretty well reheated, like if you're going to eat a lasagna. But a friend of mine, a couple, like maybe it was a month or two ago now, she said they had like two leftover pork chops. And, she's got like 3 or 4 kids living in her house right now, I think, plus her and her husband. So she chopped them up and put them into a fried rice. And it was
Mhm.
like, that's genius.
We have
So,
one vegetarian in our family too, so it's
yeah,
just a habit for me to keep the protein separate.
yes.
So,
But
but
it
yeah.
does let you repurpose it like that. Because
Mhm.
I mean, if you'd already put the pork into something, like now you're pulling it out and like that's, I mean, nobody's going to do that. That's honestly what's going to happen. You're not
Right.
pulling it out. You're thinking, man, it would have been convenient if it wasn't there.
I love, like, at Easter and Christmas, I always get a ham and I'll dice it up and put
Yeah.
it into smaller portions, and then I can use that for fried rice for the next 6 months. And then
Yeah.
there's another holiday and we have extra and it goes into the freezer, and I'm doing the
Yeah.
same thing again.
Definitely. So I'm curious, are there any like staple ingredients that you're seeing in your 3-week-ish grocery hauls that you're doing that like have just been go-tos? Either you found them to be particularly affordable or really versatile, or just like thing like just what are the ingredients that are staples in your grocery hauls?
One that has become a staple that I just don't really even think about buying something different anymore is Greek yogurt. Like, I don't
Mm,
buy sour cream anymore. I just get Greek yogurt, and then Greek yogurt can go into smoothies. I can make bagels with it. I can, do all these different things with Greek yogurt, where I used to buy yogurt and sour cream, and then,
right.
one of them would go bad. But you can sweeten it, you can do whatever you want to do with it, and then you're still getting the extra protein in. So cottage cheese is another one that I'm adding to things all of the time. Like, me being able to bump up my protein is important because I'm
Yeah.
diabetic. So I'm
Yeah.
always like adding it to desserts and stuff too. So
Definitely.
just trying to think of things that are versatile. And another one is taco shells, like crunchy taco shells. I don't buy those anymore. I normally will have flour tortillas or corn tortillas here at the house that you can use way more different ways than just a crunchy taco. And
Right.
then we normally get like chips instead. So then we can
Yeah.
have like chips and salsa, or we can make nachos, but it kind of gets both those different, you want the crunchy thing and you want the, taco. You can make soft tacos or have nachos, and you know, it makes you feel like you have both things without crunchy
Yeah.
tacos going stale.
So if someone's hearing that you have a grocery budget of $135 a week and they're thinking, I couldn't even get in that ballpark, which I mean, okay, like first of all, I mean, grocery prices across the country are a little bit different. So maybe for your family that would be $160 a week instead of or a month instead of 135. But someone's hearing this and they're thinking, I couldn't even get to twice that for my monthly budget for everyone. What are the first things that you'd recommend they look into or try to do to reduce grocery spending?
I do want to clarify, I am in the Seattle area, so I am
Yeah,
in one of the highest cost of living areas in the country. So I'm not in a really low grocery area. So then my grocery costs are just as high as everybody, unless you're in Hawaii. But
right,
our grocery costs are pretty much the same as California because our minimum wage is the
right.
highest in the country. But anyways, my biggest thing for trying to reduce your grocery budget is focus on ingredients and not
Mhm.
pre-made things as much as possible. Like, I teach you how to batch cook and how it's not hard,
Yeah,
but just stretching out going to the grocery store. Like, if you're used to going to the grocery store every day or every 2 days, can you make it 3 days? Can you make it
yeah,
4 days without going to the grocery store? And this is a process. It doesn't happen all in one day. And, even one of my grown up loans, I don't expect them to be at $135 per month trying to feed just one person in a brand new house that doesn't have a pantry. I told
yeah,
them that, you probably should start at like $200 and see,
yeah,
as you're adding those ingredients to your house, and making sure that you're building up your pantry, that would be a more reasonable, amount for you. But this, we do buy half of a beef, so we always have a, a beef here. We buy half a cow every 2 years. So we have our meat here, but that comes out of that same grocery budget. So this grocery budget that I talk about is the same grocery budget we've been doing for over 10 years. So everything that is in our house and we've built up in our pantry and rotating things is from doing that same grocery budget. So it really does show over time when you're concentrating on bringing ingredients into your house then and using them and recycling them and making sure
Yes.
that they're not going bad, you can get to a point where it's right for your family, and your family might be a lot different than mine.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is this isn't necessarily something that, okay, one week you go to the grocery store and you spent $550 and then you just apply these quick tips and tricks. And next week you're going to go to the grocery store and it's going to be $225. But it's something that it's being intentional about what's in your home and how you're using it over time. It's not a like snap your fingers and next week you've cut it in half.
Correct. I mean, that's like going on a full-blown diet. Like it's about a lifestyle choice and a budget choice and, trying to make things better over time and whatever that means for your family.
Yes, definitely. So have you found do you go to different stores? Like are you a sales shopper in order to do this? Do you go to mainly to like there's different schools of thought, right? There's the people who are like, no, like my time is worth more than the money. And so I'm going to one store and getting everything I need. Or there's like, oh, there's like 8 different grocery stores within 15 miles of me. So I'll go to all of them and see what's on sale.
So I used to be like an extreme couponer, like
Yeah.
back in the day when that was popular, like 15 years ago. And then around 10 years ago, we started realizing that we had allergies here in the house. And so we started buying more organic and all of those kind of things. And during the summer, I normally try to go to farmers markets more and support our local farmers. But for the most part, I go to Costco as my first stop, and then I go to our local grocery store as our second stop. And most of the time, those are the only two stops I do, and once a month. So
Yeah.
I get all of the groceries that I'm bringing home, and I wash them and put them away, and then they stay fresh the entire time. So I don't really look at ads that much. And because we're an allergy family, I'm not really worried about coupons that much either because there's just organic, natural kind of things don't really go on sale as
Right.
much as we
They're
would like.
less frequently on sale. So
Yeah. So
right.
when I'm at the store, I'm trying not to rush and I'm looking, for items like barbecue sauce. I know that barbecue sauce is on sale during the summertime. Like, do I have enough that's going to actually get me through the winter? So if I have extra money in my budget, I'll pick up, extra of something that's on sale that I know that we're going to use and it's not going to
Right.
go to waste.
Right. Yes. So you mentioned that you go to the grocery store about once a month, maybe every 3 weeks or so. How does that work with your meal plan? So are you making a meal plan for as long as you're going to the grocery store for? Are you just kind of getting ingredients into your house and then figuring it out on a day by day basis? What does that look like for you?
I hate to meal plan, hate to meal plan. Like, I don't want to know what clothes I'm wearing tomorrow. How am I supposed to know what I want to eat tomorrow?
Right.
And we're in the Seattle area. We can have a really nice sunny day and a totally rainy, cold day. And, you never know. You just never know what our weather is going to be. Like, that seems to affect my mood and what I want to eat.
Right.
So I'm pretty good about pulling out the proteins that I want out of the freezer. Like, and having something defrosting, all
Yeah.
the time in the refrigerator. But I also concentrate on seasonal produce and I base my meals around seasonal produce.
Yeah.
But the staple ingredients in our house we always have. So
Yeah.
I like work on our meals based on how I'm feeling, what my mood is, how long I want to spend in the kitchen, and if I'm just pulling out something out of the freezer just to reheat, or if I'm actually making a meal. But yeah, I honestly I hate to meal plan, but I think it's so important to write down what you ate. So I keep track of on a calendar what we actually had for dinner instead of looking ahead, what did we
Yeah.
actually have? And I have 10 years worth of these planners where I can flip back and oh, in March, we really like to have Reubens and I
Yeah.
need to think about that. Or as spring's coming, we like to do this. And it really helps remind me of, what our family likes to eat. And another thing that super helps is just take a picture of your dinner, because Google will remind you of like, oh, this June you liked eating,
Yeah.
these meals. And, in September you were eating these kind of meals. And, reminding yourself what your family already likes to eat is way
Yeah.
easier than searching the internet for new recipes.
Yes, and you're so right that it varies so much from season to season. I mean, seasonal produce for one thing, but even like outside of that, I mean, I think about something like chili. So, that is something I want to eat in colder months, even though there's not really anything in it that I couldn't get at any time of year. I mean, like it might have onion in it or something like that, right? But I mean, I can probably always find an onion that's decent. And so but like I don't want that in like June and July when it's 90 or 95 degrees outside. And it's funny how when the cooler months come around, I might remember a couple things off the top of my head. Like, okay, I know we eat chili. I know like there's a corn chowder recipe that we like, but it is so easy to forget some other things that it's like, oh, I made that like every week a year or 2 years ago and like just slipped my mind. I wasn't thinking about it every day. And so having some log like that, I think is a really great idea.
I try to also teach to like really look in your freezers twice a year too. So normally I do this in the spring, like spring break time when we're starting to get a little bit of nicer weather that, we still can turn the oven on, if we have like lasagnas or different things. Chicken pot pie is something that came up where I was thinking about when you were just talking about winter meals. But
Yes.
I still want to cook, later in the spring when we're having rainy, cold days.
Yeah.
And then when you're going in from August to September, when it's like you're trying to wrap up summer things to start thinking about fall, like, do you still have hamburger buns or hot dog buns in the freezer? Like last year, I don't know why, we had a ton of shrimp left over, and I don't really want shrimp in the winter
Yeah.
time, So if you're really intentional about doing that, like, I think late winter going into spring, and then always when the kids go back to school is when I do it, and really try to cycle out those things that that you're not going to want to sit in your freezer for the next 6 months. You're
Right.
actually using those groceries that you bought.
Yeah. I love that. So is there anything else that you found has just helped you keep that grocery budget down even as prices have gone up?
Um, yeah, just staying out of the store.
Yeah.
Staying out of the store. That is probably the biggest thing, and yeah, I just tried to stay out of the store. So
Yeah.
I live so close to Costco, Walmart, Target, all of these stores that, the more that I can stay out of the store, the better. And we have our grocery money that goes into its own debit account. So my husband on paydays, he puts the grocery money into that account, and it's always there for me. So, and that is the only place that I ever pay for groceries from, and nothing else. So we tried to do like the envelope cash method,
Yeah.
25 years ago. And then I realized that we were always sneaking money out for coffee or for something else. And
Yeah.
now we have just that grocery account, and anything that I have left over that's rolling over to the next month or saving for like our meat purchase, that's in that account. And I know that's where it's at. And just
Yeah.
that peace of mind to know that I always am able to feed my family and not worry about it. Like at one time, we had huge medical bills. Between me and one of my kiddos, we've had a lot of medical things that have happened. And my husband and I were working 5 jobs at one point just to make sure that we could keep the power on, keep the co-pays paid, and had food for our family. And we didn't realize that we were wasting so much food. And when we really started to be intentional about this one last thing in our budget that we can control, because we got everything at the time, like there was no
Right.
cable, there was no anything in our house. And when we really got intentional about this one last thing, like that's when we started realizing that we had peace again, and we were able to cut back on these jobs. And even now we're in a different financial situation, that life is good right now, and we're still being really frugal with being able to teach this and really live this lifestyle of sticking
Mhm.
with this budget. But we haven't ate out in 2025. We have the first 6 months of 2025, we didn't have any takeout at all. And we are even in a moving process. So it's been like lots of trips and different things. We were packing snacks and doing things because we knew we wanted to use that takeout budget for other things that,
Yeah.
were our goals. And so I just really believe when you really know that it's possible that you can get control of your budget, it can bring peace and it can bring calmness to your family.
Well, like I said before, we are going to put a link to your YouTube channel where you mentioned that you have all the meal plans that you've, or all the meals you've created. I guess I shouldn't say we're not going to call them meal plans, but you have all the meal creations and your grocery hauls. So you can find that there. You can find those tips on storing produce there. Is YouTube the best place for people to find you, or is there somewhere else people should go to hear more from you?
YouTube is where, long
Okay.
form everything. And then we also have Instagram and .com. So everything is the Cross Legacy. So, and I'm on Facebook, but YouTube is, we put out 3 new videos every single week. So there are
Nice.
tons of content there. And then Instagram is kind of my baby, is what I say, because I
Yeah.
answer every single comment that comes in, and try to answer questions and build community there.
Yes. Well, I have one last question for you. I ask all of our guests on this podcast. So I'm interested to hear your answer because you just you said that you're in the middle of moving and all of this and things are chaotic. So even with all of that, what is one thing that's bringing you less stress and more peace right now?
Well, I have reflective sympathetic dystrophy. So it's a pain syndrome. And during the middle of all of this stressful stuff, it has flared up really bad. And I've just been able to really give myself some grace,
Mhm.
knowing that I can do the best I can do, and that's it, and just being able to, use that philosophy that I have for like grocery shopping of, it's 80/20, and if I can give 80%, of my energy right now, that's good enough.
Yeah.
That's a B plus,
Yes.
it's good. And so, just trying to give myself some grace and to know that there's a plan for everything and it will happen in its own time. And I just think that, as moms and women, we don't give ourselves grace
Mhm.
enough, and that it's really important.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing all of this with us today, sharing your tips on saving money on groceries. Like I said, we'll have all those links in the show notes. And yeah, I just appreciate you taking part of your day to spend with us today.
I'm so excited to be here. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Get Organized HQ podcast and hearing from Amy about some tips and tricks for saving money on groceries. And I cannot wait to see you back right here next week for another episode.